Welcome to part one of this three-part series of making the Sub-Zero child's sweater in size 8. In part one, we're going to begin by casting on down here at the hem, and we will work our way in rounds up to the armholes. We'll put the back stitches on hold and we'll continue on the front. We'll do some armhole shaping and work our way up toward the shoulder and work this really sweet neck detail into the front of the sweater. The first thing we need to do is use our smaller size needles and cast on a total of 122 stitches. That'll be 61 stitches for the front. We'll place a marker and then 61 stitches for the back, and we'll place a beginning of round marker. I'm using the long tail cast on method. You can use any cast on method you like, but if you're unfamiliar with the long tail cast on method, I'll put a link to another video in the description below and you can watch a slow-mo version. After we've casted on our stitches, we're going to work 2 inches in 1 by 1 rib. 1 by 1 rib is just knit 1, purl 1 all the way around. Now that we've got 2 inches of ribbing, we're going to change to the larger size needles and start the body of the sweater. And here's a tip: if you ever have problems with the needle tips of interchangeable needles becoming unscrewed as you're knitting, just take a rubber band. This is what I like to do. Just take a rubber band and just tighten it. You don't have to go overboard or anything like that, but just tighten the needle into the cable with a rubber band, and that seems to work for me. And we're going to put a beginning of round marker to mark the beginning of our round, and then we're going to start working the body of this sweater. The first 2 rounds are just knit all stitches, so knit 2 rounds. Row 3, knit 1, purl 1 until you get to 1 stitch before the marker. Knit 1, purl 1. When we're at 1 stitch before the marker, we're going to knit 1, slip the marker, and then repeat like before. Knit 1, purl 1, all the way until 1 stitch before the marker. Now that we're at 1 stitch before the beginning of round marker, we're going to knit that stitch, and that's the end of round 3. Round 4 is knit all stitches. And that's the repeat. Rounds 1 and 2 is knit all stitches. Round 3 is knit 1, purl 1 to 1 stitch before the marker. Knit 1, slip marker, and then knit 1, purl 1 to 1 stitch before the beginning of round marker, knit 1, and that's the end of the round. And then round 4 is knit all stitches. And we're going to repeat those 4 rounds until the sweater body measures 10 1/4 inches. We've now knit about 10 1/4 inches of the lower body. When you get to the last round, which will be ending on a round 4 of the pattern, you're going to work until you get to 3 stitches before the beginning of round marker. Once you get there, we're going to bind off 6 stitches, and we'll remove the markers as we come to them since we won't need them anymore. We're going to bind off 6 stitches. So we're going to bind off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to again knit until we get to 3 stitches before the next marker, and we're going to bind off 6. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 to 3 stitches before the next marker. We're going to bind off these 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 3 more, 4, 5, 6. And you're going to knit to the end of the row. If you'll see now, once we get to the end of this row and you knit all these stitches, you will have divided for the front of the sweater and the back of the sweater. Both sides have the same number of stitches, so it won't matter which side you choose as the front or the back. It just matters that you, once you select, which, and you'll see here as you knit around this row, you've now divided for the front and the back. Each side has the same number of stitches. So let's knit to the end of this row. And once you get to the end of the row, you'll put this set of stitches here that does not have the working yarn attached to it, you'll put that on some scrap yarn, and we'll call that the back. Okay, we've come to the end of the row. I'm going to put these 55 stitches onto scrap yarn to put them on hold for the back. There's 55 stitches on the front and 55 stitches for the back. Let's get some scrap yarn. put these 55 stitches onto this scrap yarn. The front part of this sweater is now worked flat, the front and the back, but we're going to start with the front part of the sweater. And we're going to work those stitches back and forth, and then we'll shape the neck and the shoulders, and then we'll transfer these back stitches onto a working needle and finish the back of the sweater. I just like to tie a little knot here to keep any stitches from escaping. All right, so now that we've got 55 stitches on the needle, this is the front of the sweater, and we're going to continue working. So we're on a wrong side row, and we've not cut the yarn or anything, we're just going to keep using it. We're on a wrong side row, we're going to purl across. And after this, we'll start the armhole shaping. Turning now to a right side row, we're going to decrease 1 stitch on each side of the armholes. To do that, we're going to slip, slip, knit. That makes 1 decrease, and it's a left-leaning decrease. So insert the needle knitwise through the first stitch and the second stitch, and then we're going to knit those two together. And if you'll see, it creates a little left-leaning decrease. From there across the row, we're going to continue this pattern that we've already established. You see this column of purl stitches. So we're in the second we're in this column now, and we want to make sure that we purl the next stitch. I'm just gonna purl 1, knit 1 to the last 3 stitches of this row. And once we get to the end, we're going to decrease 1 stitch on the edge of that side of the armhole. So now we're at the last 3 stitches, and we want to purl 1, because again, we're just maintaining the pattern that we've already established. I have a column of the purl stitches here, so we're going to purl 1, and we're going to knit the last 2 stitches together, and we just insert the needle knitwise through both and knit those 2 together, and that creates a right-leaning decrease. Next row, we're going to purl. So next row, purl. And the next row is a right side row, and just like before, we're going to decrease 1 stitch at each armhole edge. On this side, we'll do the SSK, which is slip, slip, knit, to make that left-leaning decrease. We're going to knit across and knit 2 together, knit the last 2 stitches together. Next row, we're going to purl across. Next row, we're going to once again decrease 1 stitch at each armhole edge, and this is a row where we need to do the purl bumps. So we're going to do the SSK, which is the slip slip knit, and since this is the column I have with the purl bumps, I'm going to purl 1, knit 1 all the way across the row till the last 3 stitches of this row. When you get to the last 3 stitches, you're going to purl 1 and knit 2 together. In the next row, we're just going to purl across. And there should now be 49 stitches on the needle. Now that we've finished with the armhole shaping, we're going to continue working toward the shoulder. I'll work rows 8, 9, 10, and 11, and then we'll repeat those 4 rows 4 more times. Row 8 is knit across. Row 9, purl across. Row 10, knit 1, purl 1 to the last stitch and knit the last stitch. Row 11, purl across. Repeat the last 4 rows that we just worked another 4 times. Now that we've worked the 4 row repeat a total of 5 times, we're going to work rows 8 and 9 once. And that's just knit 1 row and purl 1 row. And then we'll get started on the neck detail. Now that we're ready to work the neck detail, we need to place removable markers on each side of the center 9 stitches. That means for this size, we'll have 20 stitches on the right, the 9 center stitches, and then 20 stitches on the left. The first row of the neck detail is knit 1, purl 1 to the marker, and then we're going to slip the marker, knit 1, purl 1, and work a right crossed cable. And all that is, I'm going to do this without a cable needle, so we're just going to reorder these stitches without the use of a cable needle. In order to do that, we're going to slip the needle purlwise into the second stitch. We're going to pinch the first stitch on the left-hand needle, and we're going to slide both of them off. And we want to pinch this one so it doesn't unravel. And then we're going to take our left-hand needle, insert it into the first stitch, and then place the stitch that was on the right-hand needle, we're going to place it on the left-hand needle. And all that did was reorder the stitches. And we're going to knit 1, and then knit the stitch in the back. And you'll see this makes a right-leaning cable. And then we're going to knit 1. And now we're going to make a left-leaning cable with the first stitch crossed over in the front to mirror this one that we just did over here on the right. And to do that, we need the first stitch to be in front of the second stitch. So we're going to slip our right-hand needle through the back of the second stitch, pinch the first stitch so it doesn't get unraveled, pull the left-hand needle out, put the left-hand needle in that first stitch, and slide that second stitch back on the needle. Now you'll see that this has reoriented the stitches. Now we're going to knit the stitch in the back and knit the stitch in the front. Then we're going to purl 1, knit 1. So here you can see the beginning of the neck detail. You've made a right-leaning cable and a left-leaning cable. And then we're just going to slip the marker and work a purl 1, knit 1 to the end of the row. We're still following along in the pattern that we've established this whole time on this body. And I'm making sure that my purl rows are in the same column. The second row of the neck detail, we're just going to purl all the way across. Row 3 of the neck detail, we're going to knit to the marker. We'll slip the marker and then we'll knit 1 and do the right leaning cable. I'm going to insert the right hand needle into the front of the stitch, second stitch on the left hand needle, pinch the back of the first stitch, take the left hand needle out, reinsert it into the first stitch, and then put that stitch back on the left hand needle. We're going to knit 2. And then we'll knit 3 and then make the left leaning cable. Go in through the back, reorder the stitches, and knit 2. And then we knit 1, slip the marker, and knit to the end of the row. Row 4 of the neck detail is just purl across. Row 5 of the neck detail, we're going to knit 1, purl 1 to the marker. We're going to slip the marker and do the right leaning cable. Knit to the last 2 stitches and do the left leaning cable. Slip the marker and purl 1, knit 1 to the end of the row. You can see the neck detail starting to form here. Row 6 is the last row of the neck detail section. The next right side row will be the beginning of the neck shaping.